Thank you.
Justin?
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Amazing. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge indigenous people of the land we meet on, and to acknowledge I was raised in Yagara and Turrbal country, and that I'm a guest in this beautiful country, and how humbled and honored I am to be merely a contribution to thousands of years of artistry and language and community, and to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded here, and that allyship is not a choice, nor is it a label you give yourself. It is work. It is continuing to be a student. It is acknowledging that being a student is clumsy, and that it requires your ego to step aside. And to be present in this country is to be aware of that journey into being a student here. So to any First Nations people in the room, I am forever a student, as I'm always forever a guest in this country. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. It has been a long time since I've been on this side. It's exciting to be back and do some poetry. One important thing, my continuous act of decolonizing poetry, is that I want people to react to poetry the way art should be responded to, right? So there is no quiet claps. There is no like lecture hall silence. I expect and would love a visceral reaction, especially because the spotlight is like a light into my soul. So it's like, I see no one. So you can't afford to be quite on top of that, okay? So there needs to be a little bit of a response. So if you haven't been to a poetry show, that your little cue is a snap, right? And it's almost like a way to engage with the poetry without feeling like you're disturbing. Because often the fear is like, oh, I don't want to disturb them while they're speaking. I don't want to be too loud. I'm louder than probably all of y'all without a mic. So you can't out loud me. So it's all good, right? So I'd like for you to be able to engage with the set naturally and organically and let it be in your body and let yourself feel it. I am an improvised poet. I like the track with his ringtone is fire. I'm not offended. It's not personal at all. I was like, hey, I got background music. I'm not mad. I'm an improvised poet, which means I don't write anything before I get on stage. I just make it up on the spot. And I just let the space guide me. I always like to introduce my poetry through introducing the people that birthed me, and I believe I was drawn by every black woman, and I am a figure of them. And as I just came back from South Africa for Poetry Africa, I got to go back and be rewritten and almost like held by black women. And I didn't realize I was on this journey of like attaching myself to the concept of beauty in a way. I think for a long time I was just Huda, and then, you know, artist, and then maybe smart, and then maybe funny, and then like beauty kind of was just like a thing over there. And I went back. When I went to South Africa, it's almost like every black woman in that city knew I was coming and was trying to give me something I didn't know I was looking for. And the moment I arrived, they all handed me beauty and handed me a mirror and just said, look, I need you to see what I see. And it was the greatest gift beyond so much I've learned from being in Durban. One thing is I got to be held by women who have been holding generations of people. And they didn't need to know my name to offer me this thing that I think was dislodged in me for most of my life. So yeah, the only way I know how to introduce is by something important. So yeah, as a matriarchal woman, I gotta introduce my poetry through the women in my life, so yeah. I know women that weep, but they don't weep through tears. They weep through song lines that they've had tattoos on their ribs. I know women that weep and clean out old cuts you didn't even know were brewing on your skin. I know women that weep through their laughter, through them reminding you that joy is always around the corner. I know women that heal people by turning their hands into everything that will make you feel whole again. I know women where their voices feel like God has dislodged himself from the sky and put it in their mid-mouth. I know women who have healed me without ever needing to know my name, have offered me gentleness and grace, poured love into me like they were seeing an empty cup on the edge of a table that was always coming to its break. I know women who have drawn me in their sleep, written poems about me, prayed for me, held me
across rooms, offered their gentleness, became the archetypes of tomorrow. I am every woman who has wept for my grace to exist. I am their musicality. I am the way that their footsteps feels like scattering bandages to make sure that the bloodstains do not last forever. I am women who have eyes like stars that make skies jealous. I am women who have written love stories in the palm of their hands, ones that have felt what it's like to be left behind by the world but still remain nurturing the world that has forgotten them. I am the woman who poured love and always had more to give. I am women with bruised arms and wrists that are getting tired of carrying broken people. I am the women of yesterday, the ones that stand with me today, and the ones we will birth tomorrow. If my poetry does not speak to a stranger's soul, then I will stop doing it. There is an obligation that you have to the pen, which is your poem only starts when you start telling the truth. Your art is only ever felt when it heals you and it does something for you first. So I am selfish about my art, but selfful enough to offer it to others because our souls must meet. And that is a commitment that I always bear. So I always would like to commit to being truthful on the stage. And as much as vulnerability is something we fear, it is the one thing that is going to close the gap between people who really want to be close to each other. It is a step forward in the right direction that we all must take. And it is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. I have ADHD. That's probably why I'm good at freestyling. Because everybody keeps asking me, how do you do it? I have ADHD. Trauma, you can put to that job. You choose. And in the last year, I've started teaching kids again. And one thing my kids have reminded me to do is that sometimes you can start to idolize the complete or the version people are presenting on stage, or the people that are teaching, and you start to think that that's so distant and so far from you, forgetting that the people you admire have scars they're just choosing to tuck away behind. And once I started to tell my kids and walking them, be like, hey, today's a bad ADHD day, we can go anyway. Strap up. Unmedicated, let's go. You know? And days where I'm like, anxiety is at a peak. And I treat anxiety like an uninvited guest with no table manners. But I must leave a chair for it, because to deny its existence is to deny my humanity. And it's very important that people see the wholeness of it and are able to experience and go with that journey. So this poem is to somebody, anyone who's ever felt like the only way that they can show up is within completion. Because that ain't the thing. There is this, I don't know why we keep trying to do that and feed into that narrative. I am always incomplete, always. And I'm always scattered, but that is the greatest form of myself that I can give. And I hope people just need a reminder. It's not that you don't know, we just all need a reminder, so this is the reminder. I'm what they call clumsy. I was never given a map at birth, but I was always curious. And I wanted to feel the earth on the bottom of my feet, so I walked barefoot. And my mother tried to give me a direction, tried to put the volume of my voice slightly down so that I'm consumable for rooms. And I told her, Mom, I've always been too big for these spaces, and you can call it being too claustrophobic for these boxes you try to put me in. You're trying to teach me how to walk before I run when I'm really curious about flying. I've always wondered if my fear would stop if I grew wings. If I could sit on a cloud and talk to God for the first time, if he would show his face to me. I've always been curious about how one color can turn into two, and how music feels like it's the only thing that my heart responds to, and how strangers to me don't equal danger, they equal curiosity and conversations I'm yet to have. I've always been too big for boxes, And people have tried to cookie cut it to present it in a way that's consumable. And I've always been too big for that, even though I'm 5'2". There is something freeing about choosing to show up exactly as you are, clumsy, unaware, barefoot, and curious about flying, even though you're still learning how to walk. There is something admirable about willing to love, even though you have felt what it's like not to be chosen. How vulnerability has been the only thing that's healed me. How strangers have been able to offer me things I never thought they could see. That a compliment to me sometimes feels like my cup is being refilled. I've always been the wrong size for any room. But I guess that's my way of making these rooms even bigger for everybody else who's cutting themselves up. That my presence is a mere invitation to be everything that you are. To show up as incomplete as possible, as human as possible, as clumsy as possible. To show up with your story, to show up willing and trying. And even though I'm scared of heights, mama, I still am curious about flying. And I'm not interested in slowing down. And I will always create like chaos is my favorite thing to start with. And laughter for me feels like medicine I won't ingest to silence my brain. I've always been too big for small spaces. But I guess me being here means we open up the room for everybody else to exist as their full self. Working with kids has always been the greatest teacher. And they always laugh and they're like, Miss, what do we have to teach you? I'm like, so much. If the goal when I was younger was to grow up and have more freedom, I actually want to be you again now. Because the boldness and the courage you guys have is something I admire. And my students have always reminded me to show up as I am. And the level of kindness and humanity they offer me when a bad day is there is something everybody deserves to experience. And my rule in all the rooms that I'm in, I tell the kids, when I ask you how you are, be honest with the answer. You do not owe me to pretend to be okay when you're not. I cannot cater to an emotion you will not acknowledge. We cannot serve you if you're not willing to admit where you are at. There cannot be a plan if you don't know where we're starting. And it's an important conversation to have. Is vulnerability sometimes is just being willing to say, man, I'm not doing good today. And that still means you can show up. You can still be in a room and only have 20% battery in you. It's all right. You don't got to show up at 80 or 100. That doesn't make you more valid for the room because you have expandable energy. Sometimes you can show up and be an audience, be chill, be quiet, take everything in, and process it in your own time. That's as valid as being on the mic. That is an important contribution to have. So, I'm a professional yapper who's right now unmedicated. Don't get me comfortable. I'll be here for way too long. So my last 1 or 2 poems, I don't know how long I'm going to hear. I'll let you decide what you're going to hear a poem about. By the way, this started because I did a show in a very similar theater, and I could see more, but you could see in people's eyes be like, she's not making that shit up. And it was like, actually, it was kids too, and they're like, she's not. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to speak, and you're just going to give me a word, and I'm going to keep speaking while you give me a word.
Praise.
It is. Okay, cool, let's go. You think I'm scared? I seek shelter under Mother Nature's favorite thing to grow, and I'm fascinated with the shadow it provides. And my skin wants to feel the warmth, but sometimes duck from it and use it as a way to paint pictures while I'm under this tree. I've known what it's like to find patience in the warmth of the sky, be able to speak to my ancestors that now turn ghosts that the whole world fears, and I know how to love them again even when they are the thing the world fears. Me and this tree have become home to each other. It is where I engrave my ancestors' stories on the bark of it. It is where the sky and I have a conversation, where the ghosts rebirth themselves, hold my hand, create shivers, so I know that the dead are not just miserable and mourning, that some of them are dancing in the wind, and they are my grandmother's bones who have now become on the ground. Love? Did I hear love?
Yes.
for me has always looked like a bandage that I cannot afford. Instead, I married hope instead. I married the possibility that tomorrow did not have to look like the nightmare that it is today. And I aim to collect enough audacity and courage and willingness and attempt so that tomorrow's love can become accessible to me. So I can go to a cashier at a store and say, can I have enough love to last a lifetime? Because all I have right now is hope. That my nightmares that keep me up all night will not be the reality I have to open my eyes to. So I'm still collecting coins in the form of possibility and courage and audacity to own the type of love that the price tag is too high for. And the cashier is waiting and the store never closes. And even though I can't afford love in the way that I want, I still have enough hope for my heart to beat, and for my creations to never stop, and for my pen to be married to the palm of my hand, and for that tree to still feel like my grandmother's hugs, and for the skies to feel like an audience who's watching me in celebration, not in mourning of everything I have ever lost. That love for me has always felt like it has a price too high for me to bear, until I realized everything I was searching for was embedded in the pit of my stomach, and the search was actually silly the whole time. That I own everything that the world tells me they have held hostage. That I am no longer attempting to chase myself behind others' feet who are running away from everything I have to offer. So yes, I still go under that tree and speak to my grandmother and tell her I'm still reminded that the dead do not want us to mourn them through tears. Sometimes we must dance for you, and I am in victory of everything you have given me, and me and love are one and the same, and no one can put a price tag on what's mine. Yeah. I got to drive to Brisbane next time, I believe. Excellent.
Excellent.
Birth. Birth?
Excellent birth.
Okay, cool. I grew up in a war zone, and some people wear bulletproof vests so they can catch anything aimed for them, but I never got given a bulletproof vest. I never got protection in that same way. Instead, I got melanated excellence and a saturation of it that feels like the sun wants to dance on my skin. I got hope in the way that I was built in the image of goddesses and gods, in the way that my spine cord is a spear, and I got multiple daggers for a tongue. That excellence is being built up for any war that is ever to come, but I've learned to love myself even in the midst of chaos. That my skin knows how to marry a bullet, inject it and turn it into a gold piece that will survive me until tomorrow. I know the victory of being one that is rejoiced, one that finds love and peace within my